Redditors who work with the public, what's your most bizarre interaction with a customer? I work at a pizza delivery business. Had a lady one day call in and order for delivery. Sure, what's the address? I'm not going to tell you. I'm sorry. If you don't tell me the address, how are we supposed to deliver to you? I don't know what the address is. Well, if you don't know where you're at, again, how are we supposed to deliver to you? So you won't take my order? Not without an address. Well, I guess I'll just order somewhere else. Then, I guess who will? I've told this story somewhere else, but in a nutshell. Back when I worked at a hardware store, I had a woman scream and cry at me for using my item scanner on her items because its laser would make her sick and or make her sickness worse. Her basket was stacked, and she was effectively asking me to hold the line up for a half hour to dial in her product codes manually. She also screamed if I made eye contact. When she left, she told me something to the effect of, I don't want you to get hurt, but if something bad happens to you, it's because I'm thinking about it. Retail. Worked as a dog bather and had this corgi named Potato. He was friggin' adorable. I don't know what I really expected, but when the owner came to pick him up, he was this big bodybuilder covered in tattoos, and he had this lime green leash, and when Potato saw him he got excited, and this big Greek statue looking guy just yells back, quote, Potato, stop that. And I still think about it. I was a page at NBC Studios in Burbank in the early 2000s, and part of our job was working the gift shop and ticket counter for The Tonight Show. Two guys come in and say, we are here for the Lakers game. I was like, I'm sorry, that game isn't here, it's over at the Staples Center. One of them just gives me a look and says it's NBC, right? I proceed to explain to him that while NBC is airing the Lakers game, we don't shoot it at the studio, and we take our cameras and crew and shoot it at the Staples Center, where the Lakers play. The one guy turns around and scribbles on a piece of paper and hands it to me. It says to Lakers tickets for insert random name, and he says, like, what about this? Huh. Thankfully my supervisor jumped in and said, oh, you'll have to come back Thursday morning. We'll see you then. Okay. And that seemed to placate them and they left. My supervisor tells me this happened quite often, and when you tell them to come back, they rarely do. I used to work at an adult store. It was a clean and classy joint, mostly marketed toward female clientele. One afternoon, an older Eastern European customer came in asking for the blue pills that come in the bottle. He was looking for Viagra. I tried to explain that we didn't carry that, but he was insistent that I was hiding it from him. I told him he needed to speak with his doctor to get a prescription, and he just got real mad. It soon became clear that blue pills was code for something sex with a prostitute. I told him we didn't have this either, and that what he was suggesting was illegal. He got more angry because what I'm wanting is to pay sex with you, stupid girl. Then he started to come around the counter making a squeezy gesture with his hands. I flipped out on him and ran him out of the store and called the police. He came back a few weeks later and I told him he was banned for seeking illegal services. Never saw him again. I'll just never forget. Give me your blue pills, you stupid girl. I pay for your six. What is problem? In my first years in the army, I also worked a part-time job as an optician in the local mall. One day a lady came in with her mother, about age 40 and 60, and they were quite hyper and giggling at each other. I asked if I could help them, and they had a prescription for lenses. No problem. She then asks if she can use her existing frames, and I was like, sure, we can just do lenses. She proceeds to hand me a pair of extremely cheap sunglasses she got from a dollar store. I told her that there was no way those glasses would stand up to having lenses changed out. She insisted that I already said she could. I asked her if she was sure, because it was almost guaranteed they would be destroyed in the process. She still insisted. I pointed out the sign we had up saying we weren't responsible for damages. It was next to the register, and asked her one last time. She said yes again. Okay, I put them in the hot box, a box of heated sand you use to loosen up plastic frames to get the lenses out, and they melted into goo pretty much instantly, as expected. She was over my shoulder watching with these wild eyes, and when I pulled them out after a few seconds, she started screaming about how we destroyed her glasses and now we owe her free glasses. Her mom got in on the action at that point and started shouting also about how I did it on purpose. I handed them back to her and said something like, "Ma'am, I told you so." They went into even more hysterics, and by this time, were attracting glances from passers-by at the mall. I just walked into the back room to the lab guy and was like, "Dude, you deal with this, I'm done." I then watched as he masterfully overcharged her about $100 for a $20 frame. It was on the display rack for $100, but we had a pile of the same frames in the discount drawer for $20, giving her a 20% discount in the process. I was there when she picked them up in about an hour, acting like she won the lottery at my expense, because I was so incompetent. I was still young and had no idea the insanity people would go through to save a few dollars and stick it to the man. I worked at a smoothie shop. I don't have many wild stories other than the fact this dude came back and complained about how the smoothie was too cold and proceeded to yell at another employee. We didn't know how to react. I was trying my hardest not to laugh, but bruh, you go to an ice cream shop and say you want your money back after you discover ice cream is cold. At a coffee shop, we had a customer come in one day and tell us in a very awkward and stilted manner that he would like to become a regular, but that he wanted a wordless transaction. He would come every day at the same time and get the same drink, and he wanted us to ring him up and give him the drink without anyone speaking to him. It was definitely weird, but we did it for him, passing the info along to the other staff as a kind of tribal knowledge, and he did come every weekday and buy his lat without speaking to or looking at anyone. It worked very well until one day I was working with a new girl and I had stepped into the back room to get something and I suddenly heard him screaming out front. The new girl had said, "Hi, what can I get you?" And he responded by screaming in her face, "What the fuck is wrong with you? I told you fucking people not to talk to me," and storming out. We never saw him again. Old guy kept coming up to my register with his oddly silent uncomfortable wife. He gave me a cheesy grin every time before he rolled back around and said, "I see why they keep you up here, sweetie. You're the charmer, huh?" Mind you, I haven't said much to this guy outside of ringing up his wife's stuff. He wouldn't let it go either because they hung around the store for a solid 2 hours. Guy would watch me over the displays, and if I met his gaze, there goes another cheesy grin. He comes up again, and at this point, I'm quietly bargaining with God to strike me down cause I don't want to deal with this creep anymore. He makes his wife buy a hat, so he has an excuse to come up to my register. "Have you thought of going to charm school? You don't need it, dear." I force a laugh and hope my personal hell is over, but that's wishful thinking. One more goddamn time, this man and his wife, who is now eyeing me up like she wants something, stroll by. He leans in, and I lean back cause I don't want any of what he's offering. "You better cancel that application to charm school. See you around." And off they finally go. I have a million stories, but today I'll share this one. It's been posted on social media before, but it was a few years ago, so let me try and remember how it went. I was working at a theater one morning and an old man scoots by in a wheelchair. He lingers by the service desk, so I ask him politely if I can help him. He responds in Spanish, asking if I speak it. I understand it, but can't speak it, so I shake my head. "Parli Italiano?" I ask. He says no. Asks in French if I speak French. I say no. We bounce between languages for a minute until finally he asks if I speak English. I sigh, because it was the language I greeted him in, and say yes. He asks if we have a lost and found, and I ask him what he's missing. He holds up a hand missing a finger and asks if we've found one. I, unfazed, respond, "No sir, not today." He wheels off. When I worked in thrift store, it was protocol for the production workers to write a number with a red dry erase marker on all of the electronics to indicate the date they went out on the floor. This would help determine which items to get off of the shelves if they had been sitting there too long and weren't selling. It was also our policy that electronic items were final sale because people would buy them and break them or remove parts and then try to return them. A woman came in one morning trying to return a small flat screen TV. I explained to her that all electronics were final sale and showed that it was indicated on her receipt. I was feeling generous that day since she was polite and considered returning it anyway if it wasn't working, so I asked her the reason. She pointed out the little red dry erase number and said I need to return this because it has the mark of the beast on it. I was taken aback and asked her to explain further. She explained that she took the TV home and when she plugged it in, the TV displayed static and a low frequency sound that hypnotized her and her children. She said that Satan was trying to communicate with her through the TV. I didn't know what to say, so I just explained to her that the dry erase is just the date and showed her that it rubs right off with my thumb. The number was not 666, by the way. I broke policy and allowed her to exchange it for something else, all while having no idea how to react to what she just told me. You bet your ass. As soon as she left, I went and plugged that TV in to see what happened, and of course it was normal. I used to work in a call center for a mobile phone network. Many years ago, a customer called as he had entered his PIN too many times and blocked his phone. After doing data protection checks, I told him that I had a 10-digit code that would restore his phone and asked if he had a pen and paper. He confirmed he had, and I proceeded to read out the number, at which points he says back quote, "Not on me." Why did he think I was asking if he had a pen and paper, if not to write something down? I wasn't asking if he owned stationery. I also had one customer complain that he had glued tin foil to his phone to stop it giving him cancer, but now he could not get a signal. I used to work in a luxury perfume shop while at uni, and I had more bizarre interactions than I can count. My favorite was an old lady. She came in wearing a dirty house coat and slippers, violently searching in the store. I asked her if I can help, but she said no and went on with her search. After a while, she came to me and said, "Okay, I give up and just ask, do you have horse fed?" I told her politely we didn't, and she started aggressively yelling. I knew it so much. It took us at least 10 minutes to calm her down. She then filed a complaint and left. Told before, but it is good. Woman calls pizza restaurant for delivery and requests shortened delivery time. Manager tells her we can't do that. Woman gives up and calls competing pizza place. Woman calls us back and tells us that the other place could do what she wanted. My manager, confused, expresses that he is happy for her. She calls back again and tells the manager that nobody better vandalize her house because she cancelled her order, and if her house gets wrecked she will know it was us. My boss, even more confused, assures her that no one cares enough about her cancelled order to seek retribution, and that lots of people cancel orders. Seemingly satisfied, she hangs up, and we think that it ends there. About an hour later, 2 police officers show up to talk to the manager. This woman preemptively called the cops on a pizza restaurant for a hypothetical crime that hasn't happened and wasn't going to happen. I have a friend who works at Waffle House, and they have regulars like every other restaurant has, but this one was a true crack addict. She would come in and talk to the workers as they were yelling out orders for other people. The thing is, she would talk about her dead son all the time. She said that he died in a car crash, but he killed himself. She'd also talk about the KKK. No one liked her, but they kinda just went with it, because if they didn't then she'd lose her mind. She'd call the work phone, but she never ordered anything. She just wanted someone to talk to. She finally got banned from that specific Waffle House. I got to meet her before she got banned, and she gave me coupons for ibuprofen from CVS and kept touching my friend who wasn't working that day. A woman came in and wanted a morning after pill. While my co-worker was getting it, she told me about the 6, which made the pill necessary, with focus on the guy's dick. It had been a disappointment, and apparently why she decided she didn't want the guy's children after all. Since she didn't speak the language very well, this was mostly done with gestures and facial expressions, but I unfortunately got the gist. Used to work at a skate shop, usually alone. Some guy came in 2 days in a row, stayed for a few hours. He wouldn't give me his real name, just telling me to call him alive. Over the course of those 2 days, he told me that he believed he had a parasite in his brain, that satellites were watching us, and about a movie idea he had, among other things. I was relieved when I didn't see him again until about a year or so later, when the shop threw a party for Halloween. I ran into a live who was there alone. He pulled me aside to tell me about another idea for a movie he had and wanted me to be in it. I made an excuse to get away and never saw him again. Nothing too crazy, but it was odd. I've seen many crazy people in the short amount of time my work required human interaction. I really don't know how people do it. One time this woman came into the place where I was working. Behind me on the wall were some abstract black and white photos that were not showing anything special. One was maybe just showing a really blurred female face, although it's more my interpretation of the shape rather than the source image. The others were just artsy stains. She was normal at first, then she noticed the photos and started to get really upset. She asked me what the hell that was and why would we put something like that up. Then she went on to say the images were depicting abuse and terrorism. Apparently the face one she saw as some beaten up abuse victim and the stains looked like terrorism to her. She went on and on about it. They really traumatized her. We was on a big job in a town center and could hear some woman shouting. She was having a full argument walking towards us, but we couldn't see who she was arguing with. When she saw us looking over confused, without breaking stride, she said, "Don't mind me lads, I'm fucking mental," and went back to her argument, now obviously, with herself. I work as a waiter slash bartender at a hotel, and last summer we had this French woman who put so much sugar in her coffee that it was turned into this mush that she'd eat with a spoon.